Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So as you can tell from the title of today's video, I am doing a quarterly wrap-up of all the books that I have read in January, February, and March this year. I read a total of 9 books. I'm going to talk about 10 of them today. I'll explain the one when we get to it. But I have just had such a good reading year. I feel like so many of the books that I've read I really enjoyed. There's only been, I think, 1 or 2 books that were below a 4-star, which is crazy to me. I feel like I've just picked up such good books, and I've picked up books that I have just been truly in the mood for, so I feel like that makes a huge difference in my rating of them, because I'm such a mood reader. Last year I used to do a monthly wrap-up each month, and I typically would mix that with my TBR for the next month. But this year I want to do it a little bit differently, and now I have my TBR jar videos that I love to do on their own. And I don't typically read enough books, I feel like, to warrant making a full monthly wrap-up video, because a lot of months I read 3 to 4 books. So without further ado, we're going to jump right into the books that I've read so far this year. But I want you guys to comment down below how many books you guys have read, because I am always so baffled by the people who read 10 plus books a month, because I wish I could be you. I wish I could read that many books. I wish I could read that quickly. I just wish I had the time, and honestly I get distracted when I read sometimes, so sometimes books take me longer to read than they should. I also want to know what your favorite book so far this year has been, because I know mine and we'll get to it when I'm going through all the books, but I feel like I just want to know what your standout book so far this year has been. The first book that I read this year was Killer Instinct by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. This is the second book in the Natural series. I ended up rereading the first one in December because I hadn't read it for a year and a half or 2 years. But like I said, this is the second book in the series. There's 4 books, and it's kind of like Criminal Minds but with teens. There's 4 different teenagers, and they all have special abilities that help them to work with people's minds, or help the FBI. And they are brought together as a group of kids that all work and live in a house, and they're training them to be future potential FBI profilers. So 2 of them are simply that they're profilers. They know how to read people's intentions and actions just off simple clues. One of the kids is I'm thinking that there's 5 kids, not 4 kids. And one of them is a natural lie detector. She can tell when people are lying versus when they are telling the truth just by little tells that most people would miss. One of them is really good at reading people's emotions and can kind of tell the underlying emotion just based off the way that they're phrasing words. One of them is a freak with statistics. She can just understand the math and the probabilities of different things, kind of like a Spencer Reed in a way of she's just got so much knowledge in her brain that just is readily available at all times. But this is the second one. I don't really honestly remember too much of what happened in this book. I do remember that I enjoyed it. It was just kind of continuing with this group of kids. They're solving a different crime this time, and the FBI is kind of on the fence on if they should be actually helping with active cases or not. Originally they were brought in just to look at cold cases because they don't want these kids actually in the field. But there's just some information that we kind of know that they maybe potentially used to have them helping out back when it was just the first kid, and they're just no longer allowed to do that, but they're kind of being pulled back into that realm. But yeah, like I said, I'm really excited. I actually have the 3rd book all in on my April TBR, so I'm hoping to get to it this month. Overall, I think I rated this one a 3.5 star, maybe 4 star. I think on Goodreads I put 4, but I think I would say probably a 3.5. It was good, but it didn't stick with me, and so I feel it's somewhere in there, maybe 3.75. And like I said, I really want to continue the series. There's nothing wrong with it. It just isn't a standout book, but I enjoyed it. I had a fun time. So that's the first book that I read this year. So then the second book that I read took me quite some time. I started reading this book last year and then stopped, and then was remotivated to read it, so I restarted it, and that is Iron Flame. I restarted this in anticipation for Onyx Storm. I was like, I need to get this book read, and I just really struggled with the whole first half of this book, and that's why I had like soft DNF'd it before, because I got maybe like 100 pages in, 150 pages in, and it was just like, nothing's happening, I don't really care. And I'm glad I continued this book, because the second half really picked up, and I feel like I became a lot more interested in what was going on. And I don't know, it wasn't as good as Fourth Wing. Fourth Wing was like an easy 5-star read for me. This one I think I would probably say is maybe a 4-star. Maybe. I'm like between 3.75 and 4, because once I got past like the 200 page mark, it was a lot better, but I just really struggled to get into this book, and that really stunk, because I feel like I had such high expectations for this whole series in general, and this one just really let me down. And I feel like I don't need to describe this book too much, because everyone knows Fourth Wing, everyone knows Iron Flame, but it's about a girl who is in the dragon rider squadron. She's learning how to combat and fight on a dragon. She's like, in the first book it was the like task of her getting her dragon, and I love the first book because it seemed a lot more fast-paced, because she got her dragon in like 200 pages and we continued from there. This one I just feel like drug on too much, and I don't know, I don't love Xaden and Violet. Like, they're fine characters, but I don't feel the hype that some people do. So I don't know, I just feel like I don't have the connection. I then tried to immediately pick up Onyx Storm, and if I'm being entirely honest, I have not finished this book yet. I made it, I think, like 50, 100 pages in. I'm on page 85. And same thing as Iron Flame, and I honestly don't know if I'm going back to it. Like, I know it's such a hyped up series, and I know that so many people love all of the books, but I just kept finding myself honestly not caring what happened. And I feel like I'm not at the point where I want to look up spoilers yet. Like, I'm kind of holding off. I'm hoping that maybe at some point I'll like be interested in what's going on again and pick this book up and go from there. And I'm holding hopes that the series gets better in my mind, but I don't know, I just feel like the concept is there, I just don't love it. And like I said, I don't love the characters all that much, and so I don't really know anything about this book, but I'm not gonna rate it. I'm just wanted to throw it out there that I tried to read this book and I didn't love it. I didn't get the hype that everyone else did, and I'm holding off, hoping that maybe once some of the hype dies down, I'll read it and have like my own opinions on it. But then I felt like the perfect way to get out of the reading slump that that book put me in was to pick up a nice, light, fluffy romance, and the one that I picked up was Practice Makes Perfect by Sarah Adams. This is the second book in the When in Rome series, and this is my favorite one so far. I love Annie. I feel like I related to Annie, like immediately. I was like, I love her. I love that she's quirky. I think Sarah Adams writes quirky characters very, very well, and I just loved that. I loved the dynamic between her and Will. I feel like they were so different, but so like secretly the same. Like, they were both kind of hiding who they actually were a little bit because of who everyone thought they should be. And yeah, I loved this book. It was the perfect book to get me out of a reading slump. And I picked this one up because Beg, Borrow, and Steal was coming out soon. So I was like, this is perfect time for me to read it. And it was just a really cute concept too. It's about Annie, who is the youngest sister to the main character, Noah, from When in Rome, and Will, who is Amelia from When in Rome's one of her bodyguards. That is like her on her security detail for when she like goes on tour and stuff. So like they kind of met because he'd been in town a couple of times. In town for Noah and Amelia's wedding, and Annie is trying to find what she thinks is going to fulfill like a missing part of her life. And so she thinks that she needs to settle down and find someone because of the happiness that she sees with her brother and Amelia. And she just struggles on dates. She is shy and awkward and doesn't know what to say or how to act, and just has like little panic attack freakouts every time she tries to talk to a man or go on a date with a man, and just blows it every time. And no one really gives her a second chance because they think that's who she is, even though it's not. And so Will happens to be at a restaurant where she has this date just absolutely go horribly wrong, and they decide to fake date in order to teach Annie how to go on a real date so that she can build her confidence and just feel a lot more comfortable in her own shoes in order to kind of make this next leap in her life. And I just think it's so cute. And the whole time she's like been trying to hide who she is from her family because she's afraid that they won't understand her, because she's always just been the baby of the family. And I loved it. It was fast-paced, it was cute, it was fluffy, and I honestly think that I would give it a 5-star. If not 5-star, like 4.75. Like, it was way up there. I loved this one. I can't wait for more books in this series. I can't wait to try more of Sarah Adams' books. I loved this book so much. So after that, also in February, I read That's Not My Name by Megan Lawley. I hadn't read much of like an actual mystery thriller for the year because I feel like Killer Instinct doesn't really count. And so I picked up this one because I hadn't heard too much about it, but I have heard a few people who have read it absolutely rave about it. And I understand why they loved it. I understand why it was a Barnes & Noble monthly pick. It was such a good book. I wouldn't quite say 5 stars. I feel like it's hard for me to rate a like mystery or thriller book 5 stars. There's only a couple of them that have like reached that peak level for me. But this is definitely like a 4.5. I loved this book. The concept was fantastic. The plot twist got me at the end. It was not what I expected. But this is about a girl who wakes up on the side of the road with no memory of who she is, how she got there, or what's going on. And she's just trying to find someone to help her. She goes to the police station and a man shows up and claims that he is her father and has all of her identification papers, everything. And so she goes home and she's trying to just put her life back together because she has no recollection of anything at all. And she doesn't know who she is, she doesn't know where she's from, she doesn't know anything about herself. And on the opposite side, this is like a dual POV, so it's her point of view, and then we also have Drew's point of view. And he is a teenager who his girlfriend has gone missing, and a bunch of the people think that he did it because her dad didn't like him. He was like the chief of police for the town, and he is just trying to get by, trying to prove himself innocent, but it seems like everything he does kind of doesn't portray himself as innocent. He just keeps on like blowing up and getting upset because he's trying to find his girlfriend and he feels like everyone else is giving up and just pointing the blame to him. It was definitely fast enough paced, which is what I love in my mysteries and thriller books. I love when they have short chapters and everything just flies by and I feel like I don't want to put it down. And that's how I felt with this book. And she just released a new book that I haven't read yet, but I'm excited to get to that as well at some point. After that, I started filming a highest and lowest rated books on my TBR. I've only read the highest rated one so far because it's just what has fit into my TBR. But this book is one that I have been wanting to read since I bought it in October. And I just haven't had a chance to read it. I haven't been in the mood to read it because I knew it was going to be a sad book. And I don't typically read super sad books. I like when books elicit emotions, but I feel like for me, a lot of those emotions are in a fantasy series that is like a longer series that we like build up a relationship with the characters and then something happens to them or in the book that just breaks my heart. And I love that feeling, which is weird to say because, I don't know, I just feel like it's weird to say I love having my heart broken and sobbing to a book. But I feel like the readers all get it. We all understand the feeling of just having your heart ripped out because you care that much about the characters. But I knew this was going to be a sad book in a different way because just the whole entire premise of the book was sad. And that was The Nightingale by Kristen Hanna. And I feel like it's weird to say that I loved it, but I loved this book. I love the way that it was written. It was just the story of two sisters who grew up in World War II France. The one is in her like upper 20s. She has a family, and so she's kind of dealing with her husband being shipped off to war, and she's just trying to make ends meet back at home on her own in this war-torn city. And then the younger sister, who is I think like 17 or 18 and is still in high school, still going to these different academies, and just wants to do something more. In her school, they were training her how to be a proper woman and how to have all these great manners, and she just doesn't see that life for herself. She just wants to have a bigger impact. And so this is the story of her and the sister and everything that they've been through. And it's initially told as an old woman kind of reliving her past, but you don't know which sister the old woman is. But just the whole thing was heartbreaking on both sides for both sisters. Like, they went through so much pain and hurt, but in different ways. And so I definitely want to pick up more Kristen Hanna books at some point. I don't know when, because it definitely was a sad book and it is a thicker book, but it's definitely worth the read. I mean, this is definitely not my typical genre, but I loved it. And like I said, I'm going to pick up some more books by her at some point and have them on hand to read every once in a while. These are not the kind of books that I would want to read regularly, but I have heard such good things about some of her other books as well. And I mean, it was an easy 5-star book for me. Like, so many parts of this book made me cry. Just, I felt so much pain for these two sisters and everyone that they knew and everyone in real life going through this war. These last couple books are the books that I read in March. Like I said, I needed to pick up something light and fluffy and happy after The Nightingale. So it was an easy pick for me. I picked up Beg, Borrow, or Steal by Sarah Adams. This is the third book in the When in Rome series, and this came out at the beginning of February. So I was a little late getting to it, but not too bad. And again, I love Sarah Adams. She is my personal queen for light, fluffy romance. I don't read a ton of romance. She is the only like light, fluffy romance author that I have on my shelves, because I wouldn't count Elsie Silver as like light and fluffy. Hers are a little bit different. Like, these are stereotypical rom-com, light and fluffy. But this one is about Emily. She is the oldest of the sisters in the Walker family, and she is a teacher and wants to try to branch out, and she's been kind of writing a book. And the male main character is Jack, and he is also a teacher. But him and Emily have been kind of rivals since the day they met. They went to college together. They were getting the same major in English and literature and education. And they were just constantly fighting to be the top of the class, to have the best internships, and they end up teaching at the same school. But Jack left. He was no longer teaching at the school. He was going off and got engaged to a different girl, and then ends up coming back at the start of summer. The engagement is broken off, and Emily is trying to figure out how to deal with her own emotions. There's definitely some grief in this book, and she's trying to figure out how to combat that, because her other siblings have people in their lives now that they go to help with their emotions, and she was used to being the strong older sister that was just always there for everyone else and just put her emotions and her feelings on the back burner in order to care for everyone else in her life. And throughout this book, she is trying to figure out how to feel her own emotions and just how to heal on her own. And Jack is a best-selling author, but he doesn't have his name out to the public because he doesn't want anyone to know. And so he tries to kind of secretly help Emily to make her book better, and just kind of helps her along that like path in her life as well. And yeah, this was a good book. It was definitely a little different from Sarah Adams' typical books because Emily was a lot less of a quirky character, and so there was a lot less humor in this book. There was a little bit more grief, emotions throughout this whole book. And there was also a little bit more spice in this book compared to her other books that I didn't love, but I feel like it wasn't bad. Like, I feel like her book, the spice in it added to the story. It wasn't like it was all just spice for no reason. But like I said, this one not quite as good as Practice Makes Perfect. I just loved the second book so much, but this one was still really good. So I think I would rate this one probably like a 4-star because there wasn't necessarily anything wrong with it. I just didn't connect to these characters quite as much as the first two, or as Annie and Will. But I am really excited for her to have the story for the last sister because I think I could really, really enjoy that one. The second book that I read in March was another one that's been on my TBR for a while, but I just really throughout most of the year have not been in a fantasy mood up until recently because I feel like Iron Flame and Onyx Storm I need a break from fantasy for a little bit. So I ended up picking up One Dark Window, and this is one that got really hyped up when the second book came out, and I have had this book on my shelves since I don't even know when, because I have the like Fairy Loot edition when it was in a Fairy Loot box back when I had Fairy Loot for a little while. And so I think this may have been back in early 2023 maybe. I got this book and didn't really know anything about it, hadn't heard anything about it, and I don't know, just never really thought about it. Just sat on my shelves looking like a pretty book. But I know recently it got very, very hyped up and I kept hearing such good things about it, but it was still just not one that I was gravitating towards, but I knew I wanted to read it during the winter time. But in this world they have different like tarot type cards that grant the user magic. However, the more they use the magic, the more they have to pay, and everyone kind of pays in a different way. But there's also this illness, this fever that has plagued the area, and if anyone is found to have it, they're supposed to be immediately killed, and those who have kind of survived it end up with their own magical abilities. But she has been able to hide it and hasn't really shown any magic, so that's how she's been able to kind of stay in hiding. However, her magic is kind of within her own head. She has this spirit trapped inside her that she calls the Nightmare, and he kind of helps her through different situations, kind of as like a mental guide. I don't want to give anything away because I don't want to spoil anything in this book, so I feel like it's hard to explain a lot of times in fantasy books what's going on. But basically Elspeth and I think his name is, I want to say it's Raven. Yeah, Raven. Elspeth and Raven are kind of forced together and they're trying to lift the mist that has plagued the city. They're trying to cure the illness, and that's really all there is to know. The end of this book definitely has me wanting to pick up the second one. I don't own the second one, but I'm planning on going book shopping next week, so I'm gonna try and pick up the second one while I'm out because it hasn't been too long since I've read this one. And there's other books that I did want to read before jumping into the second book in this series. but I really enjoyed this book. I'm not sure if it would be quite a 5-star. I feel like I am very picky about my 5-star ratings, so I would probably give this one a 4.75, like very close. And if I enjoy the second one, I would probably give it like a 5-star series, even if the books aren't 5 stars on their own. So then, switching genres again, I went back to another mystery thriller book. This was Freida McFadden's newest release, The Crash. This one came out in January, and I had it pre-ordered, so I got it back in January, but just wasn't in the mood for it at the time and had other books I wanted to read first, so I didn't get to it until now. But it was another one that I knew I wanted to read. While it was still somewhat wintertime, it was still a little bit cool while I was reading this, just because this one takes place in winter during a blizzard. And this one is about Tegan, who is pregnant and has to kind of make some decisions about her life because she's going to be a single mom, and ends up going to visit her brother and crashes her car during a blizzard, where a couple rescues her and takes her to their home because it's a blizzard and no one's gonna like come out and help her. However, she doesn't go to the hospital, and the couple, like, there's just different things going on. It's so hard to explain some of Freida McFadden's books without like spoiling anything, but I really enjoyed this one. It's definitely not one of her best books. I think still my top book of hers is Never Lie. I devoured that book. That one was so good. But this one wasn't bad. Like I said, I didn't love it. I didn't hate it. The twist was just kind of eh. So I'd probably give this like a 3.5, 3.75. It was still a fun read. It was fast paced. I definitely am going to pick up more of Freida McFadden's books. This one just wasn't my top one from her. I feel like I enjoyed The Boyfriend more, and I enjoyed the original Housemaid more than this one as well. So comparing like how my brain thought about those, this one got a 3.75. So then the last book that I read in March, and the last book that's going to be in this video, is The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes by Suzanne Collins. This one I think originally came out in like 2021, maybe 2020. I don't know. It came out a long time ago, and I've owned it and had it on my shelf for such a long time and just never got around to it. But with Sunrise on the Reaping coming out, I knew I wanted to read this one beforehand, and I fairly recently, just last year, reread the original Hunger Games trilogy because I don't think I ever read the third book growing up. I read the first two, but I think I stopped at the third one and never finished it. And so I wanted to reread those before getting to this, and I loved this book. I have been obsessed with this book. I haven't been able to stop thinking about this book since I read it, and I finished it like a week ago now at this point, and I still am constantly thinking about it. I've pulled up the like soundtrack from the movie and have been just repeatedly listening to some of the songs from this book. And so I haven't seen the movies. I haven't seen any of the movies besides the first one. So that is a goal that me and my boyfriend are going to be watching those very soon, because he also has only ever seen the first one, and he like, I want to talk to him about this book, and he won't allow it because he wants to see the movie and doesn't want any spoilers for it, which I understand because he's never going to read the books. But I am just so excited to watch these movies. And I'm currently reading Sunrise on the Reaping, and I'm about halfway through that book right now. So probably by the time this video is uploaded, I will have that book done as well. But I just loved this book. This was an absolute 5-star, potentially higher than 5-star book for me. This has been my favorite book of the year so far. And I was definitely surprised by that, because the concept of this one, I didn't think I would love it as much, because this is going back to the 10th Hunger Games, and it's based off Coriolanus Snow, and he was born in the Capitol, so this is kind of like the Capitol's side of the original Hunger Games, but it's obviously Coriolanus Snow is President Snow, so it's kind of like his backstory of what led him to be president. But with the way that this book ended, I feel like there was so much that I still just felt like I wanted to know. Like, I was immediately looking up like people's thoughts on what happened at the end of this book and what people's theories are at the end, because it was that good. Like, I am so glad that I read this book, because I really didn't have it on my radar when it first came out, because I was just like, yeah, it's like a prequel to the Hunger Games. But I feel like because this was told from like an outside perspective, it felt very different from the Hunger Games world and like all the different Hunger Games going on. Those are the, I'm gonna just say 9 books because Onyx Storm doesn't count, but those are the 9 books that I've read so far this year, and I feel like I've definitely been on an upward climb of how many books I've been reading. I feel like I've really just found a groove of finding time to dedicate to reading, and I've just figured out a better routine with homework and regular work and reading and trying to still make some social media content. And I've just really enjoyed reading again, especially now that the sun is up longer at night. I feel like I just truly enjoy having books to read when I get home from work. And like I said at the beginning, comment down below how many books you guys have read so far this year, because I always just am baffled by the people who read like 30 books at this point. Like, they read 10 books plus a month, because I wish that I could. I wish that I had the time and dedication. I really hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you guys did, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. I post videos every week. And like I said, I'm going to be doing a quarterly wrap-up for the remainder of the year. So every few months I will talk about more in-depth all the books that I've read so far. And yeah, I will see you guys next week. Bye.